Hi, I'm Julie from Fabric Garden Quilt Shop in Sacramento, and we are on our final installment of the Border Creek Station Mystery Quilt. So thank you for joining us. This month, you should have the main body of your quilt put together, and you need to make your triangle border. So this is what the border will look like once you get it all sewn together. And I want to just go back a little bit to month 6 when you had to cut these quarter square triangles. The directions gave you the option. These are your quarter square triangles that you cut from the green and the cream. And it said you could lop off these corners if you wanted to, but it was optional. So if you chose not to lop them off, what you need to do is to make a 1/4 inch line in from the point to here on both the cream and the green. And then when you stitch them together, you're going to line that mark up with the edge and this mark down here with this edge. And then when you sew them together, you will have a little dog ear there, which you're gonna tidy it up later on. If you would like to cut off the corners, there are a couple of options. The directions ask to do the easy angle ruler. Our shop does not stock these. However, we do have the Creative Grids ruler, which will actually work, and that's what I used. You need to remember with the Creative Grids though, it has a flat end on both points, but only one point is correct. So let me show you how to do that. You're going to take your quarter square triangle. If you were to put it like this on your triangle and cut this corner off, that angle is not correct. So you do need to turn your ruler this way. You can line up the edge of your fabric with the edge of the ruler and the edge here, and then you can nip those corners off. And then just turn that over and repeat and do the same thing. I have already cut these corners off on these two. So when you are stitching them together, make sure you look at the picture that is in your pattern as to the orientation. Oh, I should have opened this ahead of time. Sorry. There we go. You need to have your green pointing, if you're looking at it, the green needs to be pointing up. I'm going to use this one. The green up, and the cream is going to be pointed down. And I have nipped these corners off, so when I sew them together, I'm just going to line them up like this and like this, so those edges are even. And this one I have already sewn, and do your 1/4 inch seam. And you will end up with a piece that looks like this. Now, a couple of hints I want to give you. The directions in the pattern say do not press with an iron until the very end, until it's attached to the quilt. So you can finger press, and it doesn't give you any indication which direction to press the seam. I tried pressing it one way, I tried pressing it the other way, and I did find that just finger pressing it open is the best. And it does lay flatter, and I think you will get a crisper point. So you can just gently finger press this. You need to be very careful because this is a bias edge and this is a bias edge. If you feel like you must iron, my tip for you is to only use the toe of your iron and do not use steam. The steam and the heat is going to distort these bias edges. So I should have brought the iron over to demonstrate. But just put this on the ironing board and just gently, again, with just the toe of your iron, go down that seam. Do not touch this side or this side with a hot iron. And then when you are sewing these together, you want to sew 2 triangles. You'll do 2 triangles, 2 triangles, 2 triangles, etc., until you get all 22 of these and 21 of these sewn together, then you're going to sew 4 together, and then you're going to sew 8 together. I kind of work from the outside and work my way in. If you sew them just one right after the other, like if you sew 2 together, then you add a third one, then you add a fourth one, you will get a distorted strip. So once that is sewn, I have got this long strip here. I don't know if you can see the whole thing. I actually, on my quilt, I have the sides and the bottom put on, so this is actually my top. But once this is put on, you can see this is not quite even up here. This should be 2.5 inches wide. You do need to trim it, and when I say trim it, you're not chopping off a whole lot. Maybe 1/8 of an inch to 1/16 of an inch is all you're going to need to take off. So take a ruler, and I don't know if you can see on the camera, there is this line right here is a 1/4 inch line. I would line that up with my peaks and my peaks, and as you can see, I do need to nip a little bit of that off. I'm not going to do it here since I don't have it all laid out, but just take your rotary cutter and just go along there, and you can just move your ruler up and keep making sure you've got your 1/4 inch mark. Once you have that done, then you just need to flip it over and do the same thing on the bottom. You still may have a few little valleys like this. That's perfectly fine. It's going to get caught up in the seam allowance. When you sew this on, let me see if you can see on here. Okay, so when you attach this to your quilt, you're going to find the middle of your strip and find the middle of your quilt, pin the middle, pin both sides, and then work to the center and pin. Pinning is very important. And then you want to sew with this side up so that when you are stitching, you can see where your points are, so you don't chop any points off. And then once you have all 4 of those put on, the final border is just the plain border, which is the same thing we did last month, so I'm not going to go over that again. If you have any questions, you can refer to last month's video. The pattern does recommend sewing 2 strips together and then taking a 3rd strip and cutting it in half and attaching that and then putting it on your quilt. As I said in last month's video, I would just sew all 3 of those together, lay that in the middle of your quilt, and then make those edges even. And that is really it. Let me think. I had one final tip. Sorry. When you are sewing this border together, we all make mistakes. I had to tear a couple of these triangles out because I didn't like how they were laying. If you have to use your seam ripper on these, do so very gently. Because of the bias seam, if you just yank that thread out, it's going to get distorted and may or may not fit on your quilt appropriately. So I think that is all for this month. Thank you so much for joining us for this mystery quilt. I hope you've had as much fun as we have. And if you have any questions at all, feel free to come by the shop or give us a call. Thank you.